welcome to the Voice with Action podcast. We're privileged today because we get to actually speak to Rebecca and our country director. They are in West Africa, and we're not going to share our country director's name just for his protection, but it's really amazing to hear these updates of what's happening in the communities where we serve and how the Lord is moving. And our country director has been doing this work for 13 years and has been praying for these regions in this community. And the Lord has heard every single one of those prayers and he is answering them. And people are coming in droves to not only work with Orphan Relief and Rescue, but just to ultimately hear about Wow, God, Creator God, who loves them. And it's amazing to see. So I wanted to hear from both of them today.
Yeah, so we had some Western teams come, so 2 in a row. And last week, we started just doing community meetings with these Western groups in the morning, and then we go to the orphanage safe home in the afternoon to do programs with them. But the village work, this is the anti-trafficking area where hundreds of kids have been intercepted from being sold or have come back from being trafficked. And we're sharing Jesus because that's the answer to no value for life and their extreme poverty. You have to do the 2 hands of the gospel where you're helping them practically with savings and loan program, as well as, feeding the kids and schooling them. But the other element is without the element of Jesus, nothing changes because ultimately they're so entrenched in their voodoo practices. And there's no value for life in that practice. We had 900 people show up to just one meeting. Shocking. What is this? How does this feel?
Well, it is a feeling of joy, of great joy, in fact, because as the Bible says that when one soul, even one soul is saved, there is a lot of joy in heaven. So that was the same thing, on our side also, because it just like a massive harvest. A massive harvest, a lot of people.
Massive harvest.
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of people coming to Christ, coming to the light. And the real problem, the main problem of people in our communities is lack of knowing Jesus. Just because they don't know Christ, they don't have this light that gives joy and love for yourself and to your neighbor, you see. So we thank God that through this community program we are doing, the Lord is visiting them. A lot of them are coming to Christ. That is my main joy, because many are coming to Christ. Many are coming to the light. So all our efforts since 13 years is now bringing fruit, because we know that with Jesus, the hearts are changing, the mind are changing, and also the lives are changing, the lifestyle are changing. The way they are treating the children before is now changing because they are coming to Christ.
I'm curious, 13 years ago, did you know it would look like this today?
Well, we can say exactly. I am a person that look at big things. I'm hoping that it will be bigger and become bigger. Sorry, but I don't know that it will be like this so soon. You see, so it is a big surprise. It is a big surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, all the team members that come, it's shocking what they're seeing as well, witnessing the move of God. The pastor, Deb's going to interview the pastors that came on last week's team and this week's team, and so they'll share in their own words. I'm not gonna spill it of what they're thinking, but just in awe of God every single day, like just seeing the move of the Holy Spirit that is literally capturing the hearts of these different ones that have been so in despair their entire lives, and Jesus is setting them free. and it's pretty incredible.
So, can you share a little bit of what this meeting was like with these 900 people, and what has, I know our country director shared with you that these meetings are different from like a crusade, because we feed the people, we have established relationships with these people through our programs. So there is a very relational element of trust there, but also kind of the message and what you're sharing, you know, people are very spiritual, very aware of the spiritual world, and yet they are choosing to want creator God. They're choosing to want Jesus. They're really beginning to believe in their heart that God is greater than the gods that they serve. So I was kind of curious if you could share what that meeting was like.
Well, we've had meetings in 5 different village areas, and each one is really completely different.
Yeah.
And so the theme, you know, it kind of depends if the chief gives us permission. Like today, the chief literally said, I want you to share Jesus. Idol worship has not been working for us, and I want you to preach Jesus and only Jesus. No more idol worship is going to be preached here. So he was sitting on the right of me as I was sharing. You know, the team shares their testimonies, which lays the foundation of the beauty of the Lord. And then I got up to share, you know, just kind of personal experience of what I've seen that, you know, the voodoo gods do, and which I don't know if I should share it online, honestly, how bold I've been, because my life is at stake here in the villages where we're working. And I'm very aware that what I'm doing is what has never been done before in these villages, and what we're doing. And I don't ever want to endanger my team. Do you think I can share such and such? And he's like, it's time. Let's do it. And so then I share, and I know there's a lot of people that are going to be very upset. I have a bodyguard. I just literally said, okay, to my bodyguard, I said, you're with me. You're protecting my body. And then the other one, okay, you are protecting the team. And then I just kind of gave everybody their army battle plan, really, if something was to occur, because we're disrupting the entire belief system. It kind of reminds me of in Acts, where Paul said, you know, he was confronting all the false gods, and the goddess in Ephesus, the goddess of Diana, who was their protector, and all of the businesses that were based around, you know, the trinkets and, you know, the things that they did for protection. You know, that's what these villages are. They literally they believe that if they don't believe in these gods that are what they have told are their protectors, then they're not going to be safe. It's all they know. And then if they don't do certain things like beads and necklaces to protect them, you know, shell necklaces that represent, you know, their voodoo stuff, they're not going to be protected. And then that doesn't even take into account all of the people making money, that this is their business. You know, they're doing the potions and the curses, and you come to me and I'll help you. And so we're disrupting that entire system carefully, but not gently. And we're kind. You had said, I like the way it's being taught. Mm. You said it's like Jesus taught in parables. Explain how you said that, how it's different from like the normal, I'd say, crusade or whatever.
Well, normally during the crusade, you preach Jesus, but mostly with some word that people do not even understand. You see, like new birth, like
new birth, born again.
Yeah, like, Christian terms that we know from Scripture, but are foreign to someone who's never heard it before. Right.
People, we hear it, but most of them do not understand what it really means. But this time, you see, the gospel, Jesus Christ is preached with normal words. Like, it's just like uh, we came down to the level. And with typical examples, personal testimonies, preach Jesus to them the way they can understand. You know, so that is how it's really amazing. They understood clearly what was said, and that's why you can see all those reactions. Almost everybody want to follow Jesus. You see, so it's really amazing because they understood it, and the message, even though a lot of them were living kind of different life from what the gospel is saying, they didn't accept it because the preachers put themselves into in the shoes, like what Rebecca did. She used a common example, and she was like taking the place in the realities, and from there now explaining the fact that, well, that is the only thing they knew, and that's the reason why they are living and doing short things. But you don't know what you don't know. So your reality is not the only reality that exists in the world. If you don't leave your side and go to another side, you cannot know. You will only think that all that's happened in your village is all that everybody does, something like that.
Yeah.
So through that, with a simple way, she presented Christ to them. You see, and they didn't understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
team, shared their personal marriage stories of, not being a good husband, or a hardship as a wife. And so very much personal testimony of how they needed God. A couple of them shared they wanted to take their own life even. And so it was that they laid the foundation. And then I came forward at the end after their testimonies and literally, would take a little child from the audience and then a mother from the audience. So this was one of the examples. And I said, I know that all of you are only doing what you know how to do. This is just where you grew up. And so I said, but what I see on a regular basis is I see, like, let's say this little boy, he has a grandmother that's talking to him at night and telling him to do stuff. And if he doesn't do it, he's going to be killed. And the things that the grandmother is asking him to do, which is actually not his grandmother, it's actually a demonic spirit that is impersonating his grandmother to make him do something destructive and harmful to somebody. And that is something that if you have Jesus, you can combat that. You can, you don't have to listen to that because that spirit can't kill you if you have Jesus. I said, and then you take this woman who is doing really good stuff in her community. She loves children. She's helping children. She's loving her own children. And she's just really a good woman in the village. But this grandmother is telling this child at night in her dreams that she has to kill that woman or that little girl will die. And she is so convinced that it is her grandmother that's telling her to do this. But she really doesn't want to kill that nice woman. And so she struggles for a few nights with this dream that she believes is her grandmother. And then she finally decides, well, if I don't do it, I am going to be killed. So why don't I just kill her chickens instead of her body? And why don't I just destroy everything in her yard? Maybe my grandmother will be appeased with that. And so then this woman's getting everything destroyed. Her chickens are, being killed and all these things. And she doesn't have any idea why this is happening. And it's all the evil spirits, which, I told them the evil spirits are actually demons that want to destroy. They want to kill, steal, and destroy your life, like it says in John 10:10. The
That's
thief
the
comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And then I pull somebody else out and I say, who's the thief? And they all say,
Satan.
Satan, and I say, yes. And Satan is impersonating, these grandparents that you think you have to listen to. So I gave them those practical illustrations. And I said, you have power with Jesus. You have power to combat this. And I know that you've never been told this. Like, this is new to you. But I'm telling you, the answer is Jesus. Just giving practical things of what we've seen them walk through. And what was interesting in one of the meetings, one of our workers heard one of the women, when we were doing at the end, we do these declarations, like renouncing all the, voodoo and all the covenants and assignments that have been placed over us or that we've aligned ourselves with. That's a whole nother thing that we could talk about on another podcast. But one of the ladies literally said, in the middle of the audience was one of our workers they didn't know it was one of our workers. And he said, there was two women. One woman was deep in voodoo. They both were deep in voodoo. But one woman was declaring with, when we were saying the declarations, I renounce the voodoo. I renounce, demonic presence in my life, da, 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 da. And the woman beside her was like saying no, and like trying to pull her arm to stop, declaring with her arm. And our worker said, our employees said, shoved her, literally shoved her over, and is like, leave me alone, I'm declaring. And then they started getting this argument. And the woman who was declaring, wanted to be set free, said, that woman up front, she's not dead. And nobody talks like this up there unless they're going to be dead. But she's not dead. And so the God that she has, I'm not saying this word for word, but basically the concept was the God that she has is stronger and more powerful than our God. And that's the God that I'm going to serve. Because that woman's not dead for what she's saying. And, they're freaked out from all these curses and everything.
Yes, she also said that they have been worshiping whatever they are worshiping since they are dying. They are having a lot of trouble, and why not follow this thing, that this new way, this Jesus that can save them freely, that can deliver them, that has power over the evil one. So yeah.
Yes.
So it's like they are serving, they have their own gods and their own idols that ask something from them, and they have some kind of exchange that happens, and they might find temporary relief or an answer for what they're looking for, but ultimately it doesn't last forever, and they're being lied to, and
Exactly.
it's not working. And so they're like, okay, here's this woman up front who's proclaiming Creator God and Jesus. I want that God. I want to know
Yes.
that truth, and it will
Proclaiming
set them
boldly,
free.
and nothing is happening to her. So
And nothing's happening to me. So the greatest, what I'm learning in all of this is that I've heard more than once now where people are saying, nobody talks like this here. Nobody shares this message here unless they want to be dead, basically. And so I'm no dummy with the cost that is being paid right now. At the same time, God is our protector. And when on one of these meetings, it was our second meeting after I'd shared a lot of hard stuff last week. So this week, I just literally, told my bodyguard what to do. He's protecting me, and, just distributed who's going to do what. But my bodyguard, he pulled me aside when we were almost done with the meeting, and he says, Rebecca, can I talk to you, please? And I was like, yeah, because I want you to know, he goes, I have seen a vision as you were talking and as the team was talking, and the whole time you three were talking on testimonies and stuff. He said there were angels
yes,
all over the ceiling. And I said, how many angels? And he said, buco, many. And I was like, okay, can you describe them, please? And he says, well, they had long robes, long white robes, gold crowns, and their hands were outstretched towards the audience. And he said they had big smiles, but they were glowing. They were like really bright. And then he said, and then I had like the vision of like with that I had like army, like an army uniform on, like a warrior. And he says, I honestly, he said, I chuckled because like, whoa, this is like cool, what's on me. And he realized this is a spirit, like the Lord is so protective and strong. And he wanted to share that with me because he said he knew I was coming in, not fearful, but just prepared. Like this could go wrong. A lot could go wrong here. And so, we prayed going in and all that. But, and then as I was praying for people at the end, we all had our prayer stations. There was like 8 of us prayer stations. And he was standing in back of me and he was just singing praise songs very quietly. Nobody could hear but me because he was right beside me. And I literally was like, where am I? Where does a muscular, bodybuilder, bodyguard, literally singing worship songs, guarding me? And I thought, you know what? He loves God with all his heart. He knows the battle that's going on. He's prepared. Like when I told him, okay, gird up, here we go. We don't know what's going to happen here. And he literally put all his weapons on the outside of his, his anklet thing. He's got like a knife. He would put that on the outside so he could grab it quick, and he was getting all of his gear ready in case he had to go into battle. And spiritually, he was also girding up. And I thought, he knows the battle that he's going into physically, and he knows he's ready physically and he's ready spiritually. He literally was allowing the Holy Spirit to just continue this angelic presence over this place.
Yeah. Didn't the Lord show him that like the angels stayed because of worship? Like it was going into battle. It was the Lord was showing him worship. If you worship me, that's how to combat.
Yeah,
this.
I haven't really processed with him. We've been so stinking busy with everything. I mean, in passing, I'm like, well, that was cool. He's like, yeah, that was cool. I'm like, how many people do you think were there? I don't know, like 900, maybe 1,000, and yeah. It's going to take like,
No details on that.
Yeah, it's going to take me a year to process what just happened in the last 2 weeks, honestly.
Yeah. So to kind of recap, it really is amazing to hear this message of God's love, bringing it down to their level from stories that they understand, that you are literally walking in their shoes right next to them and showing them the truth of Jesus, because it's Jesus's love and his truth that will set them free and free from their bondage, free from the lies, because the enemy is lying to them all along, in so many ways. And he lies to us in so many ways. And so it's bringing those lies into the light of Jesus so that he can shine his truth.
Yeah, that is it.
Yeah. One last question I want to ask you is, how would you encourage someone who has been praying for many, many years and God has yet to answer their prayer? And you were praying, for many years, and the Lord is answering your prayers now. So how would you encourage someone who's in that season of waiting?
Yes, that we should continue praying, continue serving. Because one thing I know of God is that he never lies. He's faithful. He's faithful. We have been waiting, and now we are seeing the results. So they should also continue waiting, praying, and serving. Yeah.
And how about for the future of Orphan Relief and Rescue? I'd be curious, anything, is this just feeding your vision of where you want to see, where the Lord wants the organization to go? Is all of this just affirming maybe where the Lord is taking us? Anything else the Lord is showing you right now? Or this is all very fresh, so you haven't really had time to process.
Well, I don't think there is anything to say right now. What the future holds is too big. So we will follow God step by step. Whatever step He opened up to us, we will follow Him there.
I love it.
Yeah. And ultimately, like today, we had all these kids that have been brought back from trafficking.
Yeah.
And we honored parents who had brought back their kids this year. And we had so many, and we give an incentive for them to show us, them and their children. We say we have a gift for them if they want to come forward and be vulnerable, because it is a shameful thing. But we give them a bag of rice, off to the side if they'll be brave enough to come up. And the stories that we interviewed just today, I'm just in shock that these kids have gone through what they've gone through. But this is why we do what we do. And it's pretty incredible. So the Jesus element and these, services that we've had, community meetings with our teams, is like icing on the cake. But it's honestly, it's more than icing on the cake now. It is the cake. It is the cake, because that's what's going to transform these villages. And that's what's going to save these kids from future, trafficking and trauma. And so, it's just unbelievable.
I love to hear that you're celebrating when people bring back their children, instead of something, because I think that's another thing that the enemy does, is he wants to shame us and keep us in the dark and keep us quiet. But if you can bring, this is redemption, this is because of Jesus, we are bringing these children back, and this needs to be celebrated. It's not something, be free of the shame of this. This is something that's freeing for even the parent, to have this restoration. And that's even a picture of how Jesus works. So I love that we're doing that.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your time. I know you guys are very tired. It's been a very fruitful couple of weeks, but thanks for just taking a moment to share. And I hope it really encourages someone out there listening that God is so faithful, and he hears every one of your prayers, your deepest heart's desires. Don't think they are impossible with God, because God makes it possible if it's his perfect will. And we're seeing now, you're hearing these stories, that this is also his perfect timing for these regions and communities where we work. So we're just so grateful and in awe of Mau Wow, Creator God. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Voice with Action podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you consider sharing or subscribing to this podcast and leave a 5-star review to help us grow? If you want to reach us or help us end child trafficking in West Africa, go to orphanreliefandrescue.org. That's orphanreliefandrescue.org. See you next week.